Good afternoon. On behalf of the King County Bar Association, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Luncheon Committee, welcome to our Feeding Your Soul by Feeding and Helping Another, Part 2 of a three-part luncheon series. My name is Richard Jones, and I am chair of our committee. My regular job is to serve as the United States District Judge in Seattle. Now, if you missed the first presentation by Jeff Robinson, you missed a dynamite show. He was absolutely fabulous, and we expect the exact same thing from the next two presenters. So let's talk about how this format began in the first place. We began our luncheon program in the mid-90s under the initial guidance of retired Superior Court Judge Charles D. Johnson and Phil Ginsburg. Now, each year, our committee has hosted an annual luncheon to celebrate Dr. King's legacy, and we plan to do the same thing for 2021 under a slightly different format and a few months in advance of our normally scheduled Friday before Dr. King's birthday luncheon. All of this is due to COVID-19 and our interest in keeping you and all of us safe. Hopefully, we can return to our large traditional format in 2022. So why are we celebrating Dr. King's birthday now? It's quite simple. We're in the middle of a catastrophic set of circumstances, COVID-19. Now, you do not have to go far to see, read, and hear about members of our community, including children who face the tragic realities of food insecurity every single day. With soaring unemployment and devastation from the virus, the needs of our community food banks are soaring, but the funds to help them are dwindling. Please know when our community started this journey to raise funds, it was not just another cause commitment. We are facing a need our committee uniformly felt we needed to address. This is the right time, and we have a moral obligation to help others. Now let's put our initiative in context. In a few weeks, we will all enjoy Thanksgiving dinner with variations in how you celebrate because of the virus. Now imagine if the variation you had to experience was not just the inconvenience of the number of guests or where they would be placed at the table, but the lack of food to feed their family, not just for the holiday, but on a daily basis. Today, you can help change that or at least ease the pain by joining our effort to help feed our community. In a few minutes, you will hear from one of our committee members, Dan Shea, to emphasize the importance and urgency of your giving. Let's talk about one other issue, key and critical to the King County Bar Association. And the Bar Association is deeply committed to help continue to provide scholarship assistance to minority law students in great need of financial assistance to complete their law school education. Gabrielle Villarreal, one of the former recipients of a King County Bar Association scholarship, will share with you the impact of the scholarship in his journey to becoming a lawyer. Please hear their pleas and please help. In the spirit of honoring Dr. King, we arranged 3 presentations by 3 incredible presenters during the months of October and November on topics of voting rights, housing, and education. We welcome you today to the second presentation of our luncheon series by Trish, Millines, Dziko, a leader in our community dedicated to the educational challenges, or maybe I should say opportunities in our community. She is the co-founder and executive director of the Technology Access Foundation, a Seattle-based organization designed to create more opportunities for students of color to engage with science, technology, engineering, and math. Her full resume is in the special events section of the King County Bar Association website. I firmly believe that Dr. King would be proud of the effort of the King County Bar Association, its Board of Trustees, and our committee for engaging in the work for which he gave his life. We will first hear from Dan.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Shea, and I am thrilled to serve on the KCBA's Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Luncheon Committee. As Judge Jones mentioned, we have gone digital this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This year, the committee also decided that we needed to do more to help and serve our community. We need to continue to support the KCBA Foundation's Minority Scholarship, which has helped so many, but we must also help those in our community facing food insecurity. That is why this year we are asking the attendees of these programs to donate to both the KCBA Foundation's Minority Scholarship Fund, but also Northwest Harvest. Northwest Harvest is one of King County's largest food banks and also helps to create a community of other local food banks to increase not only their buying power, but their overall impact on food insecurity in our communities. These partnerships include local food banks such as the White Center Food Bank, the Pike Market Food Bank, St. Vincent de Paul Georgetown Food Bank, and so many more in the King County area that are helping the members of our community during this unprecedented time. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed everything about our daily lives. Many of us are still working from home with no date of return, and we're not able to see loved ones. But this pandemic has most likely had the greatest impact on those of our community with the least. Just think about how much your grocery bill has gone up since the pandemic started. This has had an even more dramatic impact on our food banks in the King County area. Prior to the pandemic, Northwest Harvest was able to create 4 nutritious meals for every dollar they received in donations. Now, due to the increased cost and continued supply chain disruptions, that $1 can only provide 1 nutritious meal. While the buying power of each donation has diminished, its need is even greater now. Just think of this, that $5 latte that myself and I know so many others may have even while working from home can still help those in need. That $5 instead of a latte can go to providing 5 nutritious meals in this pandemic. And those small donations can amount to so much more when we all band together. Today, our speaker will focus on giving children the education they deserve. A key part of that is ensuring our children have enough to eat, to be able to learn, and to be successful. Again, this pandemic has highlighted the need to address childhood food insecurity now. In Seattle Public Schools, just over 200,000 children qualify for free or reduced lunch. But it is unknown how many of these students depend on the food they receive at school as their only source of nutrition for the day. With so many families not able to access food through school programs, even those that are set up in this emergent basis by the schools or the districts, they are now turning to our local food banks for this need, which again has increased the need and the importance of donating to our local food banks. This can also be highlighted for our law students that benefit from the minority scholarships. Those law students will likely face new and unforeseen challenges due to this pandemic. Decreased scholarship awards, decreased abilities for grants or other funds, while facing increased tuition costs, increased housing costs, and increased food costs may lead even some of our own law students to face food insecurity and turn to these food banks in their hours of need. Or even worse, making the hard decision that law school is just too expensive for them to attend. That is why the committee has decided to act now, but we need your help. Based upon pre-pandemic figures, it would cost $134 million to solve food insecurity in King County alone for just 1 year. Due to the increased cost, I'm sure that this figure is much higher now. So on behalf of the entire Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Committee, we would like to thank each and every one of you for your continued support of the Foundation's Minority Scholarship, and now for your donations to the Northwest Harvest through our programs. 100% of the donation that you make to either the Foundation or Northwest Harvest will go directly to those beneficiaries, and collectively we can help to support our minority law students and those in our community who are facing food insecurity, maybe for the first time in their lives, or maybe an even greater need due to the pandemic. Together, we can fight food insecurity and to help support our minority law students in this unprecedented time when we are most likely facing food insecurity that has not been seen in a generation. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Today, you can answer that question by contributing to the Northwest Harvest and other food banks throughout the King County area, and through your continued support of the KCBA's Minority Scholarship Fund. On behalf of the entire committee, again, thank you for all that you do and for the support that we count on for so much.
My name is Gabriel Villarreal, and I want to say I'm a 2L at the University of Washington School of Law, and I just want to say thank you to the King County Bar Association and the MLK Committee for the wonderful gift of a minority scholarship. It has made all the difference in my legal career. I really came to law school to answer a very simple question of, where can we find justice? Prior to law school, I spent 4 years working in politics. And I just kept walking into rooms full of lawyers who saying, no, you can't regulate us that way. We're trying to rein in the predatory lending industry. No, you can't regulate us that way. No, you can't force us to do this. And I didn't really have an answer to some of these legal questions. And I realized that policy could only take us so far. Law is really the key to actually advancing the policies that we have in place, and as well as informing the creation of new ones. And it's really what brought me to law school. But my passion is for serving minority and underserved communities. I am originally from Chula Vista, California. Grew up in South San Diego, right by the border. My grandparents immigrated from Mexico and the Philippines, and they are my inspiration. And every single day that I walk into law school, or in these COVID times, log on to Zoom, it is they who are at the very forefront of my mind. So I just want to say thank you to the King County Bar Association for the scholarship and for your support. It really, really, truly makes a difference.
Hi, my name is Trish Millines Dziko. I am the co-founder and executive director of TAF. That's the Technology Access Foundation. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I want to talk to you about our public education system and how we deliver on a system that our students deserve. TAF, it has started in 1996 with a very simple goal to bring technology to communities of color. And over time, we've morphed into a completely different organization that focuses on partnering with public schools to help transform them into schools where every student is welcome, every student can be developed, and every teacher can continue to hone their craft. So I want to walk you through a slide deck. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about what it takes to fully transform a public school system. So when you think about our current public education system, there are 4 things that we have identified where we have major challenges. And if we can get past some of these challenges and bring in improvements, we'll go a long way to delivering the kind of system that we need. Number 1, I think we all understand that our system is inequitable. We have low expectations of students of color. We have disciplinary practices that go against students of color and low-income students. And essentially, almost every public school system ineffectively communicates with families. The second piece is around our academic models. We're way too focused on standardized tests. There's not a lot of rigor. There's not a lot of depth in terms of getting kids to think and getting kids to have voice and choice and giving them those 21st century skills. The curriculum really lacks relevance. We have a combination issue is we have teachers that aren't connected to their students because they don't live in the same community they live in, or they don't come from the same types of communities. So there's a disconnect there. The curricular content is not relevant to students. It's not delivered in a relevant way. And we fail to recognize that students have lives beyond what happens at school, and they don't just drop their lives at the school door when they come in. And finally, there are districts who want to make change, but they lack the funding, they lack the human capacity. And a lot of that is because they're so busy trying to maintain the current system that they have that they don't have time to pick their heads up to kind of figure out what it is they need to do to make changes while at the same time keeping the system running. So we've identified 6 major pieces that if we did some work, we can actually deliver on the promise of providing the kind of public schools where students can thrive and they can grow, and where teachers of color can thrive and grow. The first 2 are really around belief and behavior. So you look at philosophy and culture. That's really about what does the school believe in, and how do they demonstrate that? And then culture-wise, it's around what kind of environment, welcoming environment do you have? Do you foster authentic learning? Can everybody bring their own personal identity to the school, regardless of whether they're students or teachers? The third element is around pedagogy, which is basically the method of teaching. And it should be really designed towards student voice and choice, and helping them become leaders as well. And on content, the curricular content has to be relevant. It has to be something that students can connect to. It has to be something that challenges our hegemonic system and our hegemonic structures. We have spent way too many years or decades getting one slice of history of our country. And having a diverse staff is important. One of the things that you may not know is that 70% or 90% of teachers in our public schools are white, while over 50% of the students are students of color. And this is nationwide. In Washington State, it's similar. And finally, expanding the community so that businesses and professionals are coming to the classroom, and they're supporting the classroom, and they're sharing what happens in the real world. They're coming in to volunteer and to mentor, to expand learning beyond the classroom. So let's dig a little deeper. And on each of these things, I'm going to talk about the short-term solutions, the long-term solutions, and what actually needs to be true to make those happen. So when we start with philosophy, short term, I think it's really important for the administration to just sit down and figure out, who do we believe in? What do we believe in? What do we want this school to be? When we talk about this school, when you talk to every single person in this school, what will they say is our philosophy? Spend some time to determine that. That's the shortest amount of time you'll spend on this work. And then long-term, developing an onboarding protocol so that every new staff member that comes in understands the philosophy and buys into it. And the thing that needs to be true is that every single adult working in the system, in the school, must subscribe to the philosophy. Otherwise, it'll just, it'll be mayhem. Once you get that first person or two that decides that they don't agree, then that's when things start going downhill. So now let's take a look at culture. So culture is really the behavior, right? Philosophy is belief, culture is behavior. One of the things to look at is making sure that every student is held to the same standards. They should be high standards with support to meet them, so that every student can be their best. We can get the best out of all of them. They can discover their own genius. We need to move away from those punitive measures of discipline and really start talking about, how do we solve some of the problems that we have, and creating more time for learning and planning. So one of the things that's missing is we cram the school day with a bunch of classes, particularly middle and high school, but we don't give teachers time to plan and just really figure out what it is they're going to do for their school as a whole. And then long term, when you start thinking about, we need to strive for school cultures that welcome and develop everybody on the campus. We still give middle school and high school teachers 150 to 180 students per year. And then we wonder why kids aren't successful. And we know it's right, but we keep doing it because as a country, we don't believe students are worth the dollars it would take to lower that teacher-student ratio to something that's proper, more like no more than 80 students per teacher. What needs to be true is that you have to have a school-wide belief in every student as a learner, because when you think about students going to each teacher, they're going to have a different experience. The same experience they should have, though, is that every teacher believes in them. And then we need to get rid of academic tracking and segregation. That is the us versus them that's created by adults, that is not created by students, and it's created by adults in the school, it's created by parents. We need to integrate our classrooms so that kids can learn to work with each other at all levels and lift each other up. And we need to get away from that success failure mindset and understand that failures are not bad if you learn from them. And it's okay, and you shouldn't fear failing. That's one of the growth points in your life. When we move on to pedagogy and about how we teach, we need to really focus on bringing standards-based instruction. What does that mean? That means instead of just, following the curriculum in the book, giving the kids a test, and then just grading them on that, instead of understanding, have they met the standards that we say they should meet in every subject? The state has already established those standards. We can't make an assumption that the curriculum in the book is going to cover them. We can't make the assumption that every student is going to grab it the same way if we only deliver it one way. So we need a pedagogy that focuses on building on the standards and creates competency and performance-based assessments so that we can understand if the students have met the standards. So instead of sitting them down in front of a test, we might want to do things like have them write, have them create video, have them recite. There's a lot of different ways that kids can show how they can meet the standards. And then in the long term, this is a big one. Our systems and our structures need to be changed to support the implementation of an exploratory learning. That's not something we're used to. We're used to seat time. We need to create more time for learning and planning. We need to create more time for discourse so that students and teachers can kind of noodle over what it is they're learning. We need to adapt our school schedules, get away from the 6 period a day, and start really focusing on what does our school need to ensure the depth and quality of learning our students deserve. So what needs to be true? We have to be willing to move from standardized tests. I had an interesting conversation with our superintendent of public instruction a couple of months ago. He's actually bringing back the state test. We're in the midst of COVID, and our students are going to be tested, which makes no sense whatsoever. And we're so wedded to the one easy, what we perceive as an easy way to determine if kids know what they should know, that we're not even thinking about removing it, and we're implementing it in the worst of times. But we need to move away from that at the state level, which means we have to have a lot of professional development because most teachers aren't really ready to deliver a kind of a pedagogy that is adaptive, right? So there needs to be a lot of investment in professional development that needs to come from the state level. And included in that professional development has to be stuff around racial equity and being anti-racist teachers. Is very, very important. And then we have to have a willingness to use multiple technologies. As we found now in this world of COVID, um, we've been forced to do it. And big investments have gone into teacher development that should have been made years ago, but now we're pushing it through. And just like the way students learn, adults learn the same way. You just can't cram, cram, cram and expect everything to stick. But long term, we have to really start to think about how do we make that change. When we start to look at content, we need content that's responsive to students' culture. We can do that pretty quickly in the short term. We need to make sure that white students get to see content that is more targeted toward other cultures so that they can see other cultures succeed. We have to understand that not all content is billed as culturally relevant content. So we have to really comb through what's out there and supplement it where needed. And in the long term, every piece of curricular content should be chosen from a lens of equity and inclusion. And that is, there are a lot of new materials coming out. They're all the same. Our state, our districts need to just draw a line in the sand and say, we are not bringing in any new curricular content without creating some kind of rubric around racial equity and inclusiveness. And then we have to also have ongoing professional development for our teachers as they start to pull in curricular content. So what needs to be true? We have to abandon the hegemonic approach to curricular content. That's pretty simple, but it's also very difficult. We have to get teachers the curricular resources they need and make sure that they are inclusive and adaptable. And then the teachers need to build up their skills so that they can select culturally relevant materials. So let's talk about the diversity of staff. As I mentioned earlier, 90% of the teachers in our schools are white. Over 50% of the students in our schools are of color. We just simply need to hire more teachers of color, right? But it's not just about hiring, because when we get them, we tend to lose them because we're not focused on their retention and their happiness in the environment. So we need to create inclusive environments that decenter the culture of whiteness and hold space for experiences that have been traditionally marginalized. It's that simple. We need to identify support systems within the schools so that teachers get a mentor, teachers of color get a mentor. We also need to make sure in the long term that we start to move teachers into leadership. Because the more teachers we have in leadership, the better opportunity we have to clean up the environment. And our state needs to pull together an effort to make sure that they're doing their job to get teachers of color into our state, into our fabulous institutions where they can get their training. They'll start to stay in the state, raise their families here, teach here, and then, it's that snowball effect. And then the next thing you know, we'll have more teachers of color in our school. We'll have a high retention rate. What needs to be true here is that, principals need to invest in culture shifts among the teaching staff, right? We have teachers of color that are new to teaching, and they walk into an environment where they feel bullied, where they feel less than. We need to change that starting at the level of the principal, and that should be part of their performance review. So when we start to look at expanded community, one of the things that we talk about is valuing student experience. We need to tap into the knowledge and the experience that the kids already have. We need to act like kids learn in places besides school and avoid using some of those derogatory terms like learning loss and catching up. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to realize that students learn no matter where it is they are. And what are they catching up to? You know, every day, every minute is a learning experience for our students. We can craft it in a way when they're in school that makes it relevant for them moving forward to the next step in their academic career. And for a lot of schools, a lot of families, schools do the teaching, but really we need to break down those barriers because not only do you get great learning at home, you also get great learning in the community and businesses coming together to support the school. And then long term, we need to build this bigger system that connects more stakeholders to their neighborhood school. There's this disconnect between the school and all the businesses that surround it. It doesn't matter what level school it is. And some schools are good at bringing in local businesses to support them for like field trips or fundraisers or coming in for a class visit. But this could be much deeper if we spent the time to pull it together. So what needs to be true here is that we need a system in place that enables schools to offer like this regular external experience. It just varies from district to district. We work with 4 different school districts. How we get kids out to these places and how we get these professionals into the school varies in each district. We need one central way to do it. We need people who are invested in schools to bring more resources, to help these schools grow, to help them get used to having external folks in to the system. And, you know, our children and our teachers, they deserve the best. So I think it's time for us to give it to them. So how can you help? That's actually why I'm here. I want you to help. We categorize our work in 4 buckets: people, money, things, and ideas. When we partner with districts, we bring people, we bring grant dollars, we bring things, and we generate ideas. So I'm going to ask you to think about what can you do in these 4 buckets. In terms of people, you know, you can be a classroom speaker or mentor, or you can get involved in your child's school. There are a lot of ways that you can bring people to a school. If you know that a school is looking for professionals to come in and help with projects or to give advice to teachers, spread the word, tell them about it. Because folks are in there, everybody's in our little silo, we're all at work, we're all working with our own families, but we're all talking about how the education system needs to be improved. Let's get our hands dirty, basically, and get in there and get to work. Money, that's pretty easy. Invest in your local school or invest in a nonprofit that's serving students. You know, TAF is a really good option. But there are a lot of other organizations that partner with schools in different ways and provide a different set of services. If you're interested in supporting things like the mental health services of kids, find an organization that's providing that and give money to that organization, knowing that you're putting to action the kind of things that you care about. And speaking of things, you know, schools are always asking for things. They're asking for supplies. They need equipment. You know, whenever that call is there, if you have extra things to give, or you know people who are interested in coming together and building things. I know we had, when our kids were building tiny houses, we asked all the parents and their friends, could they bring supplies and materials? Because the less we had to buy, the better house we can build, and maybe we can build extra houses. When we're talking about ideas, you know, pick an education issue. It doesn't matter what it is, and be well versed in it if you're not already, and bring those ideas in for change. Go to the PTA meetings, go to the school boards, Go to the organizations that are partnering with districts and universities to help change the system. You know, everybody has something they can add. Everybody can bring something to the table. Don't feel like you have to be an expert, education expert, to contribute ideas. You can learn a little bit more about what we do. You can contact us on our website. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and Twitter. Our handle is Stand by TAF on all of them. And I hope to see you at one of our events. I hope to see you at your child's school event. I hope to see you in Olympia or at the local school board fighting for a great school system for all of our children, particularly our most underserved students. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Mr. Dziko did an amazing job. Thank you so much today. Our next and final program is set for November 19th, same time with Dr. Quintard Taylor. His presentation will be on the systemic impacts of housing discrimination in King County. Hopefully you will leave today convinced that the King County Bar Association's Luncheon Committee honored its promise to feed your soul, and hopefully you can help feed and educate others. Please make sure that you give. Thank you.